Those in favor of adopting the agenda today, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda has been adopted. There's a special recognition today for school board members.
There is.
Do I recognize
We
myself?
have two outgoing board members, and so we wanted to thank you for your service. We have a little bag that Jenny's put together with some swag for you both, Ivan and Gustavo. We want to thank you for your service, the volunteer hours that you put into it, the extra time that you do afterwards. Most people don't know the amount of time that actually takes to do the volunteer position that you have. So we wanted to just thank you for the service that you have provided the community and the students and the staff of Woodburn School District. So thank you so much for to both of you for that. And we'll listen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for this piece? Okay. Public comment? So there's no public comment today. We move on to the budget hearing. So the board will temporarily set aside any business to conduct a public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget approved by the Budget Committee on May 30th, 2023. Please submit your public comment in advance. Do we have?
We did not receive any.
Okay. All right. Quickly, so up next we have reports. So we'll begin with board reports.
I just had the graduation, which was great, so that's my.
Yeah.
Very. You speaker. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any others?
Same, attended the French Prairie Middle School promotion and high school graduation.
I also attended the graduation at the high school. There was a couple school events that I attended. I think it was the literacy program, and then there was one thing, but those are the two that come to mind.
Yep, same. Attended the graduation. It's a nice day. It's great to see all the families come together and celebrate the students and teachers, and just everyone just there to just see them go. But really exciting. And yeah, I thought bringing in an alumni to speak to the students was really good, and hopefully we keep that going in future graduations. Right, up next, we have a ITS department report from the Office of the Superintendent.
I'd like to welcome up Corinne Alburn. She's our Director of Technology. She has with her Farland, our network specialist.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to use the mic? We're gonna take a little field trip. So is it already on? Does that make a difference? Okay, perfect. Okay. Because it was amplifying yesterday. I thought, I don't know, we're playing with this was timely, the ITS presentation, because we have new technology in this room that we're still learning about. New camera, new mics. There's still some things coming. And then we also, because we're going to do this more interactively, so we're going to make sure that you know from soup to nuts what we do during the day, which means we're going to start with district, or really the stuff you don't see that keeps everything running. And then we're going to work our way down to classroom technology. So we brought a lot of those things with us. It's like a technology petting zoo a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do, and just if you just hold your questions to the end, we'll get all the way to the end and give you an opportunity to ask about what we do. What you see up here, I have a few tabs open. This is our help desk software that we use every day. So as folks in buildings and at the district level enter tickets, we get them, they get delegated by 2 people by the end of the day. And then each tech is responsible for their tickets, but if they're in a building, a lot of times they will steal tickets from other techs, because if they're sitting at Heritage and they're done with what they need to do, they're going to check to see if there's anything that can be completed. So there's the ability to steal. This is one of the things that we've honed in the last year. We've always used Web Help Desk in Woodburn, but with sort of the onset, like half of our technology team turned over. And so we have a lot of new knowledge and new expertise and a desire to improve the efficiency here. So we've changed a lot of settings and inform the field about how long it's going to take for their ticket to get answered and what they can expect as far as questions that it's sort of standards for when they get the information that we need.
So can you share like on average, how many tickets do you receive? per
Yeah,
month?
let's discuss that at the end. If you want to just hold it, we'll get all the way
No,
through.
I'd like to know, since you're talking about it now, is that something that you know now?
I can definitely get that information for you.
Okay.
So ticketing is a big part of our day. We all sit on this help desk the whole time. So we're gonna start with that district level perspective. And we actually have a closet in every building. There is one here. So we're gonna go upstairs and take a look at that closet. And actually, because there are so few of you, we can all just go. We're not all not gonna fit in there, but we'll kind of walk everybody through it. It's Jamie's it's field trip time. So we're going upstairs. I'm just gonna leave this and we can kind of pause the recording. Okay, great. We may have to, yeah, let's do that.
Is it?
Come on up.
No exercise on the stairs.
Get the blood flowing. Oh, a little unorthodox, yeah. So Jamie's still up there. There's more of a field trip in here, because what you saw in that closet is all laid out on this table as well, kind of in a smaller version. So the switches that you saw with all those ports in the back are here. We are replacing all of the closet switches, so the ones you saw here, the core switches that sit over at French Prairie, they're failing constantly right now, are getting replaced this summer. But you can't replace a core switch during the, really, I mean, you could do it during the school year. You're just running the risk that if it doesn't come back up, you're really gonna disrupt learning. And it's, I mean, Jamie works in the middle of the night.
I was just gonna say that you guys.
Yeah, yeah. So the core switches are getting replaced mostly on Friday nights. And there's a warning to the building and, you know, if there are any sporting events or anything like that, they let people know. But now that kids are gone, we can do these anytime of day that we know there aren't many people in the building. So it's kind of nice. The maintenance schedule has really helped us because they're clearing buildings out and then we get in them before they, you know, completely cancel out of buildings. So switches at both closet and core. So we call them layer 2 and layer 3 switches. Thank you. Sorry. So layer 2 and layer 3 switches are all getting replaced right now. Each of the servers, so he mentioned servers, and when you rack things in these closets, they have an order to them and it's consistent. So the servers were down below and servers have hard drives in them. So they have several hard drives and you can operate, a server can operate without all of the hard drives, but if a couple fail, you're in trouble and you start losing data. Now there are backups. I'm gonna let you explain backups because you've been working on that.
Sure. Okay. Unfortunately we got into the,
I know.
you know, she asked me a question. I'm like, all right, let's talk about it, you know? How much did you cover on this?
We talk about hard drives and the hard drives and the servers.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so we have so much data, it won't fit on a single hard drive. So we have to split it up amongst multiple drives. We set it up in a way typically to where 2 hard drives can fail and we're still okay. If that third hard drive fails, we lose all the data on that server. So thankfully, we've set up some better monitoring to where before a hard drive fails, typically I'll get notifications on my cell phone and in Slack and via email that this hard drive's having a problem. And so before the first of the 3 hard drives even fails, I'll go and replace it just as a preemptive measure. So we stay on top of that. And then we have, yeah,
Quick question, how many hard drives have you changed?
well, this year's a little tricky because we actually replaced a lot of servers, just the server itself, because a lot of them were really old. And so I think we've cut down from 17 physical servers down to 8 more power efficient servers. So we're going to save a bit on electricity and cooling because they're more energy efficient servers. So technically, I haven't replaced any dying drives, but we've
It's all on the milestones. We will talk about that later.
Yeah, so-
I think it is 18 to
17 or
or
18
17
servers.
to
Yeah.
8, yeah.
So,
But whole servers. So that's the other issue is the closet technology, not just the switches are old. The switches, though the project was initiated long before any of us got here. We use something called E-rate money, which Sarah knows. Sorry, Jenny, we're just gonna really mess up. Sarah knows a lot about E-rate and I handle that. And what it is, a federal program that reimburses school districts based on their poverty rate. And so we get reimbursed, our reimbursement rate is quite high. Now it's changing right at the moment because our demographics are changing, but it allows us to buy technology that connects kids to the world. And so there's category 2 money, which is internal. So it's our connection from here to French Prairie. And then there's category 1 money, which there's a lot of, and that connects us to the outside world. So right now, for instance, we're using category 1 money to build to Clackamas ESD so that we can house backups of all the data that we have in the district in Clackamas. It's far enough away, so it makes sense if there's some kind of catastrophe here, our data will sit there and be safe, and we can retrieve it whenever we recover from that catastrophe. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's all part of the disaster recovery plan that we also worked up this year. So there's a lot of legwork and everything kind of connects in that way. So E-rate money is really important to us in terms of, being able to do projects like this. It doesn't cover servers, but it covers anything that connects kids with content, connects teachers with the outside world, connects kids. It's a way to break down the 4 walls of the classroom. Clackamas has a giant data center and they have for, several years.
yeah, so Clackamas has a lot of ESDs actually use Clackamas ESD as their data center. A lot of like fire departments, sheriffs, ODE has their data center in Clackamas ESD. I don't even know does Willamette ESD even have a data center anymore?
Not to have that.
Okay.
The data centers, Clackamas ESD are former racquetball courts.
Right.
And so they're huge facilities, so they operate double diesel generators.
Yeah. So they have diesel generators. So even if the power goes out there, they can run for everybody's data center services for at least a week. And then they have, I think, 2 different services that come and refill their diesel tanks. So it's, if Clackamas ESD goes down, everybody.
But there are a lot of, they really have, they're very equipped to do it. And actually the fiber run is costing us it won't cost us very much money at all. And there is actually, we're just connecting to fiber that already exists. That's quite close by. And the company that got that contract through E-rate offered us a really good monthly deal on that fiber as well. So we won. It was like we were shocked at the bids, but oh gosh, storage wise, I don't know. I wouldn't even venture a guess. I could find out if you want. Yeah, I can report back if you want. Somebody will know. Okay, so you know all this stuff.
I think they have 7 rows of 42U racks in the at least 10 racks in a row. So and they rent out rack space to different people. And so Yeah, and then, with storage getting smaller, getting more, the ability to have more storage per rack over time, so I kind of feel like it's unlimited. It's just limited by, how much money we can spend on it, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as security goes, they're again equipped. They're very equipped to, and we're using them for, backups as well. So we're all kind of part of that infrastructure that keeps all the data safe. And we all have, even our insurance has really ramped up as far as the questions they're asking us and what we have to do in terms of cybersecurity. And I think it was Lauda that asked or that wanted to know more about cybersecurity. And there are things that are in process right now. The targeted attacks have really ramped up. So we'll share some of that stuff with you today, but we won't get too deep into it because our strategy is, it's not unique, but we kind of like to keep that stuff secret. So, okay, so this is stuff that connects us to the world and breaks down the four walls of the classroom, really is its job. And now we're going to move this way to this corner. This is all district technology. And if you want to get up, we won't move that camera. Uh-huh. No, go ahead. It's okay. It's fine.
How much is all of our data backed up currently, or how much of it is like externally versus internally?
So I'm going to let Jamie talk to it. Yes, it's all backed up.
So it's all backed up internally. We have kind of a data center at French Prairie, like that's where we keep most of our servers, and then we back those up to some servers at the high school currently. So that way, if French Prairie burns down, once we get servers to replace it, we can migrate the data back to the new replacement servers after the fire, or we can continue to work with this, using the servers at the high school as the prime. The plan going forward is, because I've lost data in the past, just as a person, right? Losing my photos, like that's a bummer. So I'm kind of the person that I'm kind of overdoing it. So we're going to back up data at French Prairie to the high school. That data is going to be backed up to Clackamas CSD. So if we have an asteroid that hits, and hits the high school and French Prairie, we still don't lose all our data. And then long-term to-do list is to move to have a copy of our data off region. So we're going to try to get the most important data backed up like on the East Coast, so that if the giant earthquake ever happens and it takes out French Prairie High School and CSD, if we can ever rebuild from the the giant earthquake that is horrible, we'll have a copy of our data on the East Coast that we'll be able to bring back here. So, and if the whole United States gets hit by an asteroid, then I'm out. I can't I can't back up any more than that. So, yeah.
But there are Homeland Security sort of guidelines that help us too. So, okay, so this is district technology. And I'm going to encourage you, or like students, like get up and come this way, because you won't be able to see all of it if kind of set up as stations. So this district technology, so it's the stuff that you see in every building. You've probably seen some of this stuff. This is an outdoor speaker. It connects with so it's an IP speaker. So when we install, sure that there's that building to accommodate the outdoor speaker. And then the speaker clocks, which we don't have with us, and there aren't any in this building, so we can't even show you, but walking along hallways, there are actually speaker clocks that make announcements and things like that. That also connects to an IP number somewhere. So it has to have a port on the switch. And then we'll show you some interfaces. These are all programmed through interfaces. So like the scheduling's all done through the IT department. We set up the schedules for each building. That makes the bells ring. They make announcements through speaker clocks and things like that. Purpose, but they all work. So make any changes. I said, okay, I just want to show it. But they've all got some sensitive settings and things like that to just make sure the school day runs smoothly. So we've got speaker clock. We have projectors in every common space at this point. Most of them are mounted from the ceiling and most of them are called short throw. And so it's mounted very, very close to the wall or on the ceiling, and then it throws versus the ones that you've seen that are mounted on the ceiling in some cases. And then a lot of our buildings have TVs. So right now we're trying to standardize on all of that technology because they were all over the would walk in and go, oh gosh, purchasing is console, which they're really, really, I have to say, this is the buy because it saves us a lot of time and we can often do bulk purchasing. We have several statewide contracts, really regional. We can buy off any contract. So if Washington, we can go through them to get the technology as well. It helps us a little bit with procurement because I don't know if Sarah's ever talked about procurement, the board, but it is a lot of hoops to jump through as far as getting something in. And that's because we have statewide procurement laws that really, they don't restrict us. It just helps us with, kind of being good stewards of that money. So there's board policy that says, for instance, if we have a purchase order over $1,000, we need to be getting other quotes for it. And it just justifies what we're purchasing. It does. I mean, it's taxpayer money, so we need to be responsible with it, of course. So all of the hardware is purchased through access point. So we're replacing these right now. You see them often on ceiling wall in the ceiling tiles. But in buildings, oftentimes you see them, they might have cages around them. I don't know if you've ever been into kids like to jump up and touch things. We make sure that so access points are really important. They are what connects us wirelessly to the closets in each building. This is a security camera. These for sure, if you look up every once in a while, you see them all over the place. So they give us insight. And then Jamie talked about the storage. Each building has a server for video footage. Gets stored for a certain period of time. We get asked sometimes for it, but every building has somebody that knows how to pull that footage. So it's what's going on. We're in the process of replacing these. I think maybe the last bond purchased a bunch of cameras and the high school is done first and all of them are getting really outdated. So we have better technology that's cheaper now, allows better visibility. And so those are getting replaced. Phone. So we did a huge redecoration. It was an analog phone system with the voiceover. Everything's reliable closet. So these voice over IP phones are great. They have directory services on them. We're kind of improving like voicemail and things like that. These were really problematic. The server housing this information was really problematic because of that old. So it solved a lot. There were settings that were there that were messing up stacks in every office, and so that had to go. So proud of him. One tech that took that on, and he's done a really stellar job. He knew nothing about it in November, and then he's just learned. Recently in Portland Public tried to poach him. So phones, speaker clocks, what did I miss? Vectors. Oh, we're also responsible for doors. So the keypads that you see outside of each door where people badge in, we work with maintenance a lot to make sure they're in working order. This is actually called a strike, sits at the top of the door when somebody badges in and it's a valid Woodburn badge. It opens that, it unlocks it so that you can open the door and then it locks it back up. And then, so everybody's card is like this. Actually, HR is in on this too. HR does the initial programming of these badges when someone's hired. And then we have a system called Active Directory. And directory services is really what it's called, but most school districts use Active Directory and it stores all the data. It sets up, it kind of is the central spot that pushes all of the data to other parties. So I don't know how else to explain it. Right? Like it makes sense in my head. So directory services, we create an account there, they get email, they get access to Google storage, they get access to a building. Yes, just logging into a computer. And it's a phone book, yeah. We're in the process of improving that pretty drastically. They had Active Directory when we all got here, but it's a bit of a mess and pretty incomplete. And so we're working on just making sure, I don't know how many, Jamie sent out like 4 messages around the district. You know, what's all your information as far as your phone, which I'll reassure you, people actually emailed me back and said, wait a minute, is this legitimately from ITS? Which made me feel better. But I said, yeah, he really works for us. So it's totally fine. So this is kind of classroom technology is over on this table. Certain probably some of the things that you see are not what you'd see, what you'd expect. So the really basic things are like a document camera, which have gotten tiny since I was in the speakers. Everybody has a docking station, so that plugs in your workstation, and when you go to teach at your desk, everything plugs into a docking station and allows you display on your TV, your projector, and then we have a robotics kit here. We have a STEM class that's been happening, and it's new at Valor this year. And we're looking. So they got robotics kits for kids to use. And then these are, I didn't want to print a 3D printer. This is filament from a 3D printer. And a little extras that go with it. So what a 3D printer does, so you can print a chess piece or I said, does the pen work? And they said, no. And I said, I'm gonna come back this week. So that's really nice, like these are challenging tools to use because they don't always work the way you think. Like the red filament might not print as well as the black filament. And so what I've seen in classrooms most often is that kids are really motivated to make it work. It's not like it's typical problem solving, it's like back problems on a page. It's the spatial awareness kind of design something all the way to product. So these are new things that we're seeing in classrooms more often, and it's super exciting. These are mostly out of CTE classes, but at the I guess we consider them CTE prep. So these are from the middle level. We're getting more 3D printers at the middle level, but right now reside in our CTE hall. Yeah, so if you want to go look at one, I mean, there's, I know that we'll be happy to show that stuff off. And we've had a really good partnership with some community colleges around here that really give us a lot of like sort of seed money for technology and a lot of support later. And they also provide training. And we have computer science initiatives too in the state that's providing a lot of training for teachers at all levels, not just at the high school. So some exciting things happening and a lot of motivation from folks, I think probably from COVID and realizing that technology is really important. And so teaching kids technology and kind of releasing them into the world in a way that they know what they're consuming makes a lot of sense. So, and the last thing on this table, I think I explained is, oh no, I didn't explain the cardboard. So cardboard is like if you put a mobile device, it acts kind of like a magnifying glass. Put a mobile device in and it gives you a little like visual field trip. So we haven't used them very much for a few years. These are kind of old, but so you put your phone in there. Yeah. And then, but you would have an app on your phone that then, or a mobile device. A lot of times we kind of harvest old phones from people. They work on the wireless network, and then you can set them up to to work for kids without using data. So, and then this is a swivel. Our high school just ordered a couple of these. It works off of a lanyard. So the teacher or whoever's presenting, if the kid's presenting, they wear the lanyard. You put an iPad in this little slot, and then when you turn it on, it just tracks you with the lanyard. So you can record a video that way. At the high school right now, they're using them for teacher observation or for student teacher observations. But this is not new technology. We've been using this for quite a few years. It's just advanced in a way that's really compelling. So, yeah, so that's everything on this table. Let's see. Oh, and then I don't know why the zigzag thing, but
Is that everywhere?
not every classroom. And this is a good question. That standardization I talked about with TVs and projectors, it's happening with all of our technology. You might walk into Washington and you have a different docking station. Said, I really want these to be universal. The technology that makes the most sense. It's kind of a beautiful thing because we have really, really innovative principals in some cases. And so we can just go to them and say, why did you do this? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And then sort of use it as a vetting process to decide what we're going to settle on in the end. So yeah, it's not all of it universal, but some of it is. And then we're trying. We'd love to see more things in classrooms, but this one, we have a variety. We have a lot of Lego. These are not Lego robotics. They're different. Oh, these are actually, this is the robot that goes with it. So yeah, so they can build around them. We had, I have some at my house because I personally own quite a few robots. I have grandchildren, and I invested in robots when they first came out, and now my grandkids play with them. But a couple of different like similar types of things. There's one really a sphere that is robot, and you program it or you control it, or in some cases other tablets, like applications on the tablet. There I have little Ozobots. They're small. We don't have them in the district yet. They've been really hard to get since COVID kind of occurred, but they're little robots that respond to color. So you program the robot by drawing with just a regular basic marker. And if the combination is red, green, red, it tells the robot to go faster. So you've got a black line after that. It's really for little. It's a perfect solution to like, okay, I have ultimate control over this thing and I'm going to persist. We give them little challenges like, can you make it do this? Can you make it do this? So really cool technology that is relatively cheap. When I think one-to-one now, I'm not just thinking about Chromebooks. I'm thinking about all the good stuff that kids can use to really kind of explore the world. And then even things like the circulatory system, like you're getting to know the circulatory system. Let's use a Sphero to trace like veins and arteries. And what does that look like? So that's not the technology part of it, but it's the having fun with this. And I'm going to learn about the circulatory system. It's otherwise kind of boring. So over behind Annabelle, this is the teacher technology that we have in the district. This is fairly standard at this point. We adopted a new mobile device management system, that's how whatever devices are here get added into some place that we can, when a teacher says, I really need this app pushed to all these iPads in my class, we can isolate those iPads and push out the app, or the whole elementary school says, we're going to use this for math supplement or something like that. It allows us to do that from a central place so that we don't have to touch every single computer, or the kids or the teachers don't have to touch every single one. So the new mobile device management system is saving us some money and also is allowing us to have multiple operating systems. So the teachers mostly have these expert books right now. And it will probably replace, well, the rash of those is gone. I'm not sure when they were purchased. We had a whole bunch of them, and then just slowly they've gotten distributed. I'm not sure what we're going to adopt next, but there's a refresh cycle for all of this so that teachers never have technology for more than 4 years. And then we can redeploy that technology in labs or wherever we need it, somewhere else in the district. They need working technology that is not just working, but very up to date. So 3 or 4 years is probably max. A lot of people, you'll see more Apple computers in classrooms, and we want to be able to offer them. So one of the survey questions we asked this spring as people exited for the summer was, if you had an opportunity to get an Apple, would you choose Apple, PC, or it's okay if you just don't know? Like, it was our kind of preliminary, what do you think? And it was like 50-50 at this point. And I think we found this in other districts. I never worked with Jamie until I was here, but we've been colleagues, like sharing colleagues for a long time. So 50-50 is where we're at now. And some people it's a known entity for them. And then for some people, they want to try it out because it's just different. And then a lot of have these Dell computers that are getting old. So we'll have to figure out a new refresh cycle for them. It's a pretty simple piece of technology. And what they tell us is we're really just checking our email. It's not like we're doing a lot of, they're with kids most of the time. So, and that's where we want them. We want people focused on content and delivery, what kind of hardware is or isn't working. And then these are the student devices that we have in the district right now. We're just replacing all of the iPad technology in the K1s. So they have, and then pre-K. So our pre-K program, I don't know that they're getting all new iPads. I'm trying to think of how many we ordered for them. There were 2 different orders, but we have new pre-K programs coming in right now. I don't know if there's a rash of pre-K money but I don't know. But as we add classrooms, we acquire more of these, and these are small iPads for little hands. So they work much better for pre-K. But our K1 kids are getting full-size iPads with really thick, delicious cases on them. And they use them, I just feel like they use them for a lot of things, mostly content. And these are Chrome tabs that they were deployed, I don't know when. None of us know because we haven't been here long enough. They're hard for littles to log into because they have to have a username and password that they actually key into these, versus the iPads have other options. We can do little badges for them. And then it seems that our educational apps are really just built for iPads. And so it was one of those things that just made sense. And then Apple has this awesome buyback program too, where you actually are getting money, so much money back, worth it to, put that device again. And then they also have longevity that these just haven't seemed to have. So we'll keep some of these, like they work with some of the robotics kits and things like that, but mostly they're getting replaced with iPads because it just makes sense instructionally. And then our Chromebooks for kids are this size. They're quite cute. They were not deployed with cases on them. And so a lot have come back broken. This is an example of one that is like the hinge is completely broken. And then the screens break, the keys get broken or peeled off, suffering. So we've implemented a couple different things. We're going to put them out there next year with a lot of heavy instruction. So how do you take care of I watched a kid at French Prairie the other day with a stack of books. It's passing time. He's walking with a Chromebook open on top of that stack of books, and his friends are all gathered around him and they are moving. So I thought, okay, this is just because he doesn't know he could drop that thing, right? We get them sometimes with earbuds, like they've put the earbuds in the key and then they shut the Chromebook and you can see the break of earbuds or a pencil or something. And they just don't, it's not that they're being malicious. They just don't fully process, right? Executive functioning, they're still working on. So teaching them explicitly, like just this goes in a case, keep your cord with the Chromebook, bring it back and forth to school in the case. Don't shove it in your backpack with a million books. That's going to break the screen, those kinds of things. So that's one of our sort of like, maybe we won't have to repair as many of these because right now it's thousands.
They had something years ago where you have to keep it locked.
Yeah, we could do something like that, like Karen feeding of a Chromebook. Yeah, for sure. Like a Tamagotchi. That's it. Yeah. So explicit instruction, they're not going to take them home for a couple of months. That was another question we asked on the survey was, would it drastically affect your instruction if kids were not taking these home at the beginning so that we can do some explicit instruction. So good cases, explicit instruction. We also implemented a responsible user agreement, which most districts have. There's a legal aspect to it as well, not because we want to hold people accountable. We just want people to know sort of it goes through, I have it up on one of these tabs. It goes through each of the sort of like, here is how you care and care for and feed a Chromebook. Here's how you store it. Here's how you transport it. You know, all of those kinds of things so that families know it's been translated into Russian, Spanish, and English. Our summer school kids were our sort of first guinea pigs for how that went. It applies to staff devices too. It lays it all out. One of the legal aspects to that we have not followed in the past, there's a federal law called COPPA. It's the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act. And what it says is that vendors can't collect personal information from kids under the age of 13. So that's not us. We're not the vendor, but we do have vendors that we do business with. So what our responsible user agreement also says is, hey, parents, we're doing business with all these companies to deliver content to your kids, to, you know, supplement content for your kids, to give them access to apps that they need for communication, all kinds of different things. And is that okay? Is it okay if we share personal information with those companies for the good of the education of your child? And so when they sign that, it's stated there like 3 times. That allows us to then give up that information and be legal about it based on that law. There's nothing that says that a school district, the law actually says that school districts can act as the parent in those cases, but I don't think any of us feel comfortable doing that. I don't want to be the person that gives up someone's personal information, and, you know, I don't want that to be my decision, you know, anything that I do. So that covers us as far as that liability as well. So our responsible user agreement is long and kind of, I wish it were shorter, but it looks like this is everything it covers. And it really isn't something that we've had in the past. So it is pretty comprehensive. What folks, this is on our website. The full comprehensive one is on our website. What we are going to send home in the fall is a very shortened version. It's a bulleted list where just the kid signs, the parent signs, and then we take note of it to make sure that you know, it's all, especially that 5.2A, the COPPA part of it. And then for staff, we made sure we covered under COPPA, made sure that they know too that they shouldn't be out there just randomly signing kids up for things, because it's personal information. It's unfortunate for kids because they don't find out that their identity's been stolen until they start applying for credit, or in some cases applying for college money. So we want to protect that as much as possible.
So when a parent doesn't agree for that information to be released, what do you do?
Well, in this case, it's usually a conversation. I don't know what we're going to do here. In past districts, it's been a handful of people, and it's usually a conversation like, okay, what's going on? What are you afraid of? And it's usually just an explanation. People go, okay, that's fine. Because they don't have access to content otherwise. So they end up with a paper textbook instead of a digital, and access to digital, which is not too detrimental. But if you think about how often a paper textbook is updated versus you have digital content, and when they make changes to it, that content gets updated immediately. There's a gap in opportunity if they don't have access to the latest things.
I guess my question would be, what kind of information would be going to vendors? Because I could assume there'd be name sharing, age, and grade, but I mean, to the point where it's social security and, you know, your ID can be stolen, like, I think that would go too far.
That is a really, 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 really good question. So in the board policy, you have determined what directory information is. And that is usually, I haven't read our specific board policy, but OSBA puts out a list of what typical directory information is. And usually that's about all we're giving up. It's the username and the password part of it that is a little more sensitive. It's considered more sensitive information, and that's when we have to go seeking parent permission. So it's not so much, it's the combination. So if I know a kid's name and they're on social media, and they give me some additional information there. It's these targeted attacks that we're seeing as far as identity theft. So we're not giving it all up. That's a really good question and super valid and something we should all be concerned with. But it's their whole digital footprint that puts them at risk. So we don't want to be the people that give them that last piece if we can help it. So, okay. Now I've gotten way off topic. So you saw we talked a little bit about cybersecurity. Multi-factor authentication is the other thing. You will see it in your district emails. So that is where you need to have, you need to prove who you are, basically, to log into your email account. So right now, I think we've implemented it for, if Tony were just tell me, we had to do it. Did your department have to do it? Yeah. I think the people that have the most sensitive information, particularly financial, are the first ones that got it. And then we have this whole plan for rolling it out to the rest of the district. So you either have a little USB key, or most likely people are carrying a mobile device that it sends them a message with a code and they have to key in that code. And they have to do that at least every 30 days. So that's, don't be surprised when that comes, and follow the directions. I think in my last district, it was the board that was like, wait, what's happening? So we'll help you actually get that implemented, of course. Okay. Jamie, do you want to talk about software management, like images and pushing out new content?
Sure. Firewall, software management.
Yep.
Images for laptops. So we have, what, 500 staff or so? And more, yeah. People need applications installed. They need security updates of those applications installed. Back in the early 2000s, that meant me running around at night with a disk and installing it on people's machines. And it took, days and days to get things up to date. Nowadays, we use what's called the MDM, a managed device management. Mobile device management. Jeez, sorry. I don't do a lot of public speaking. And we can push out new application installs, application updates and that sort of thing, and application removals to staff and student devices. So, and it's literally maybe a 90-second process. So it saves a lot of tech time. It gets what staff need done a lot quicker. And so we're doing that with mobile device management. And then
So you're actually looking right now at this is the Google console that we use to do a lot of that to Chromebooks. This is sort of the centralized spot. All these interfaces have a left navigation, and then you see users in the middle, but all the settings kind of shift and change according to what we're doing. So in this, it actually goes back and forth between the Active Directory. So the directory services I was talking about, where we set everything up for the district. These two systems talk to each other to make sure everybody has the access that they need.
So we also do, operating system maintenance. So getting people's operating systems patched and up to date with MDM, and let's see, also virus protection. So for the PCs, we install antivirus and keep that up to date as well, remotely nowadays, instead of visiting each and every classroom and touching every single computer. So almost all of that stuff's done remotely today. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Okay. So last three pieces here. These are all the cost savings that we're realizing for the next. There's only one on here that is not annual. So this is how much money we're saving due to the expertise in our team. So we have a really comprehensive field techs at the building level. We've got systems administrators. Kind of straddles the world between networking and systems administration. I think we'd all agree that Ken, our networking specialist, just at some point slips off the plane, and all of us are looking at him like, what are you talking about? We have no idea. So VMS storage, we're saving money on that. Mitel is, I talked about the phone overhaul. Those are fees we're saving there. The rest are networking. The firewall, did we bring a firewall with us? Oh, we did. Oh, there, it looks like a switch. So a firewall is kind of where a lot of our security sits on a firewall. It's an actual physical appliance. The licensing fees for those sometimes and the support is really expensive. So we've gone to much cheaper, and the fact that we can, like, our team can configure some of these things, and we were relying on outside sources to do that before. We're switching antivirus. In fact, I just found out from our insurance company that AVG doesn't even cut it anymore. So we're moving to Microsoft antivirus, which is going to be less expensive because we already buy into Microsoft. So we're just using that service instead. Arrowhive, and then there are two more on there, Meraki and Extreme Cloud. Those are down. It's line 7, and then 13 and 14. Those are all access points. So we're going with one access point that has much cheaper licensing and all the fees included there. You can see those are high ticket items. It can get really expensive just depending on what hardware you have. More phone stuff there on line 9. iBoss and GoGuardian are our content filter and what we used for surveillance. So it's the application where a teacher sits and can see all the screens of the students in a classroom. It was great during COVID. Now we're kind of moving to a more active sort of method of classroom management. And we're also switching from iBoss to a different content filter that will allow us, we had to have 2 content filters because iBoss didn't filter very well off-site. So kids were taking those devices home and it wasn't very reliable. So we're moving to one that does a really good job both in and out. Tony, one of our other systems administrators, has done some deep research about that. And in fact, the content filter that we're adopting it has the same features that we need in GoGuardian. So we're going to deprecate that because it is really expensive. And then we're going to just have one product that does all the things. And it's much more, the new product is a lot less watching kids and more like, hey, I need to push out this website to kids really fast. I don't want to go through IT. I can do it through this new product. So way more efficiency, way less money. What else? VMware is for backups. I mentioned 13 and 14 are access points. FileWave is the old MDM. We're saving a lot of money on the new one. Security camera software, server, those are all just interfaces and storage. GopherPack was what we were using to push out applications, and now we're using just our native apps, the ones we already have. Getting rid of some contracts that we don't need anymore because we have the expertise in-house. Some ISP, some different, more on the phone, switching some data services. We're going to manage copiers and printers. Sarah and I are in cahoots about this. That's going to save us a lot on toner. I can't believe how much toner, like tens of thousands of dollars that are sitting at a storage facility where our student records are. And we just can't use it because everybody has switched copiers and printers. They're all over the place. Heritage had 3 contracts that they were trying to maintain. We're going to 1 contract, and in phases, we're going to just start to go more networked printers, which is going to save us tremendous amounts of money. More of that standardization. This year, once we got a new networking person, we didn't have to rely on that one line item, that 85,000 or almost 86,000 we saved because we were hiring a company to configure some of our closet switches. And because we didn't need them to do that anymore, they just gave that back to us. So they cut that part of the contract. And then they were going to charge us for the core switch configurations and then that firewall configuration as well. So we switched all of that. Well, things can get through it, but you want to talk more about the configurations and like what it does?
Sure.
Okay.
And can
So-
you talk about what can get through it?
Fire. Oh, no.
So firewall, yeah, I think the term comes from like a car where there's a metal thing between you and the engine. If you get in an accident and the engine starts on fire, the firewall is supposed to save you from being set on fire. So that's kind of what a firewall does at a district. It sits between us and the internet, and we configure it to allow our clients out to visit the internet and don't allow stuff in. So we can set it up to where nothing comes back in. Or a lot of times districts will host their own web server internally. And so they'll let web traffic come in, or they will let people in to look at security, so they'll let staff in to look at security cameras or different devices that host inside. We don't host our own website here, so we don't have that traffic coming in. And if staff like Casey or the custodians are offsite and want to see the cameras, they have to log into the VPN, which is an encrypted tunnel through the firewall to get in. So we won't have any open ports on the firewall. So is that to say that nothing can get through the firewall? No, because somebody could download an email that has a virus in it, and that virus or malware goes out, contacts the server, and that initiates a connection. So as firewalls, as great as they are, there still needs to be a lot of configuration on the endpoints for security and user training for security. There was a Gartner report, 2 years ago that said 89% of cyber attacks were on people. So it wasn't a technology issue, it was a person issue. So that's kind of the firewall. And do you have any other questions about the firewall?
Kids can they're not supposed to have access to certain things like on the internet,
Mhm.
but they do. What do you call that? And why is
That's
that?
filtering, and we do some of that on the firewall. So like, for example, we don't want kids to go to playboy.com, right? And so we subscribe to a service that these companies like Palo Alto send us URLs of different types of categories of objectionable content, and then it's up to us to decide which of that content is actually objectionable and to block. So is it SIPA requires us to block basically pornography, but we could block things like gambling websites. Well, the federal government isn't saying you have to block gambling websites for children. So that's kind of up to us as a district to decide, do we want to block gambling websites, and that's, it's a higher pay grade than where I'm at. So somebody tells me, so somebody tells me
We're
what's
starting a little campaign. We've been asked, this is a good point. So Internet Protection Act, and it block pornography specifically. The Supreme Court did not define pornography. They said, well, no, it only seems. So that still is kind of a community perspective. We just, if the category is pornography, you block it, and that's it. So this IBOS line item number 10, that's the old content filter. We're using a different method of content filtering now that will hopefully be more, it is, I mean, we vetted it, it's more effective than this, and it does a better job, like I said before, of blocking in and out. So even if the kids have that Chromebook somewhere else, it's still going through us. And actually that sits on the, no, never mind. It did. It doesn't now. We moved a lot of things. So the other thing that we have to block because of SIPA, the language is content that's hazardous to minors, objectionable to minors. I think it's still hazardous. They reworked that law. And what that is broad, right? Jamie just brought up gambling. Maybe we would consider as a community that gambling is dangerous to kids. And so we want to block it, but that's not our job as IT. It's really our job collectively. So one of our principals has said, hey, we really need to define this. Like we need to figure it out. And we would love that because right now it's a game. We just call it whack-a-mole. Because somebody says, hey, I need this website blocked, and somebody else wants it open, and then it's this like back and forth. Or, hey, we want to block all these games. Well, games don't really fall under any of those categories. And so how do we, as a district, decide what it is? If it's instructional time, it's kind of a big deal, but I wouldn't call it hazardous necessarily. So one of our principals said, yeah, let's have a conversation about that. So in the fall, we're going to pick up, just have a little group of people that get together and kind of talk about what this means. So we would encourage you all to participate in that conversation and really bring forth like what are we committed to. And the government left that really that legislation is nebulous because of course kids in Salem Kaiser, they may believe that kids should have access to different things than we do in Woodburn. And so we want to honor what happens in our community. And I mean, I just assume that's what they were thinking when they talked about that legislation. That's what I want to believe, is that they want us to have local control over it. So we'll have that conversation. I will let everybody know when it's happening next fall. And if nothing else, it's always an interesting kind of connection to everybody else to hear what they have to say. And then in the end, we'll determine kind of like what are we committed to as a district to really content filter, which because then I don't have to be the one that says, nope, that's not part of, like, our governance says that we block this, not this. Because I don't just like everything else. I don't want that responsibility. I want people focused on content and delivery, and that is my main concern. Oh yeah.
So to finish your question, every day there's new pornography websites. And so this service that we subscribe to updates our list of URLs to block that are considered pornography or gambling or whatever. That's updated on a daily basis. Is there, unfortunately, there's not a human going to every one of those sites and being like, yes, this is pornography. Yes, this is gambling. Yes, this is race, whatever the category is. It's kind of machine or AI learning. So there will be things that get blocked that probably should not be blocked. And there will be things that they don't catch that should be blocked. So every once in a while, we're going to have stuff blocked that probably shouldn't have been. And we'll unblock it once we're told. And every once in a while, somebody's going to come across something that should be blocked that isn't being blocked. And as soon as somebody lets us know, we block it.
And
So
what has that looked like this year?
I'm sorry.
What has that looked like this year as far as like,
The reporting? The what? What are you asking?
stuff that
just in
was
general?
blocked that shouldn't be blocked, or stuff
No,
that
stuff, yeah, stuff that.
I don't know. I don't know that I've seen anything that should be blocked that people have requested to have blocked this year, but we have had things blocked that people wanted access to that was blocked. So for example, the other day, somehow, Valor did a thing with the Secretary of Education. They filmed that discussion between the kids and the Secretary of Education. Secretary of Education's office shared a link to download that video. For whatever reason, the website they used to share that video with the principal of Valor was blocked. So they were clicking the link from the Secretary of Education in the United States, and it was like, this website's blocked. So that's obviously a mistake. And he sent us an email saying, hey, I can't get to this website. And I popped on and unblocked it. And then he got his video.
Yeah,
So
and usually when people want something blocked or unblocked, it goes through that ticketing system you saw at the very beginning. So they enter a ticket, there's a specific category for content filtering, it goes straight to the person that has that control.
Would it be?
That's what they do for kids in prison.
Is that can't be clearly defined as, just like that?
Yeah.
All the same case, but it is unblocked.
We-
That way,
Yeah, that would be pretty laborious for, like, we would want people to stay up on something like that. So I was a classroom teacher for 15 years, and it is problematic when you block everything. Because if suddenly some kid wants to know something and they've asked, but yeah, that's really, I mean, like I don't know how many new websites there are on the internet every day, but it's a global phenomenon. And if I can create a website, anybody can create a website. So and really from a teaching perspective, we want kids to know how to consume technology productively. We don't want to block things because, they we don't want to teach them. They need access to things so they can start to make good decisions and we can hold them accountable for their behavior. So I would never say block everything. We're going to block the most egregious things and the things that as a community we decide should be blocked. And then we're going to mostly leave everything else open because we want kids to be good critical thinkers. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I wish we could. Yeah. Really. It depends on what you decide is inappropriate. So what the responsible user agreement says basically is if you have family values that are specific to probably your family or your denomination or whatever it happens to be, you need to have that conversation with your kids And we can't hold everybody accountable for all in the whole state or community or city or any of that. So though that's the responsibility really of, it's not the responsibility necessarily, but it's an agreement in a family. So inappropriate is like, it's a tough thing, but we are required to block pornography and images that are hazardous or harmful to minors. So and that second one is, it's nebulous. We're going to have to define it as a community.
Speaking about teaching students and even with teachers, you had mentioned, if someone has a phishing attempt where, they click on a link, is there training, I'm assuming, for staff? And then also, by any chance, does the district even send the phishing attempts to see if they're keeping up with that? And then second would be, what about students? And if students get a phishing attempt, does that make it through the firewall for the district? Or, what education piece happens for the students in that aspect?
Yes, that's a really good question. We do have required training for staff. We need to offer it to students. That's a really, really good point. We'll put that in phase 2. The disaster recovery plan includes like a whole cybersecurity section, and we're still in the implementation phases because it's like pages and pages and pages. But insurance companies are requiring, and it's the right thing to do anyway. It's not just because of the insurance. So this spring, they took just an overview training that told a little narrative. It was a story about a teacher who had been phished. And actually worked with her business office to get a check to, someone that wasn't real. So it was a teacher from a teacher perspective. So the narrative is what really helps us kind of start to change hearts and minds before we eventually get to that, like, now you're not going to do this. So there will be more comprehensive training. I've written some in the past, and I'll use that. October is cybersecurity month. So there'll be a heavy emphasis, lots of education about it. And then, so we'll just keep hitting it hard. And I was encouraged, Jamie doesn't email everybody in the district very often, but when he did, people came back to me and said, does you really work for us? And I thought, good job, you guys. This is great. And it really has allowed us to ask a lot of questions about how this is operating in the past and, kind of what we need to do in the future. But I love the idea of doing it with kids because they really have to know.
Well, not only that, but is there any risk if a student does click on the link?
So that's a really good question too. The kids don't have access. It's not like teachers have access to like our grading, our student information system, which does hold a lot of personal information. Kids don't really, they have access to their own information, which can be dangerous, but just for them instead of, opening up big hole, like security holes for the rest of the district. But I had to write that down. I love that. Of course, we're going to offer it to kids. That just makes sense. Thank you.
So you talked about training teachers and students. Where in that process do you include parents?
Parents could be included too. That's a great idea.
Yeah, but where now do you include parents?
We don't have, we're not required for our insurance to do it now. So we're focusing on what the requirements, but that disaster recovery plan that I talked about, again, that has all of the phases. We'll add kids there. We'll add parents there as well. But parents really probably are getting it in their own workplace. I can tell you, like, our mandatory trainings that we have to do every year that will include cybersecurity. They're ones we do. They're legislated. We have to take them, but it's something we lament about in IT all the time. Pardon me? Well, as familiar as I can be as being in buildings. There's a lot of, if you want to come in and have input about that, that would be awesome. We would absolutely welcome your input. We can do a whole campaign during October for parents as well. So that cybersecurity month is something that happens. It's a global event. It's not just here. So yeah, I don't really have an answer. We'd have to do a community survey. We'd have to do lots of different explorations as far as what people are getting, but we're happy to participate.
Because I would say many of our families everybody has devices, but I don't know that there's probably a lack of education on how to use and how to help the kids.
We actually have data on what kind of connections they have just from the COVID data that we collected, and then just updating it recently. Oh, I forgot. I opened this up and I didn't actually talk about it. So there are some milestones that we've seen. You saw the sort of financial impact It was, I didn't tell you the last number. It's about $500,000 that we're saving just in contracts and fees and switching and condensing products. So some of the things on this list relate back to those cost savings. We've kind of picked up 4 foci, I guess, or foci, however you say it. Access is one of the things that we really are focusing on right now. Reliability, efficiency, and the last one is security. So I kind of categorize the changes that we've made under each of these. Some of them are so broad that they fall under all 4 of the categories. So we moved our student information system off of local servers, which is a huge security risk. I think you asked about like that whole, that kids could create. Teachers, we held a lot of personal information for both students and teachers in Power School, and it was sitting over in French Prairie. It just, when I heard that, I didn't sleep until we moved it. And we did that in the middle of the year, and I have to really, really hand it to our systems administrator, Tony, who was able, I think you gave the analogy at one point, like it was like we were in a car race and we were racing a car down a track, and he switched the engine in the middle of this race and nobody knew it happened. So we did it over a weekend, worked hard, IT and teaching and learning. There's one data person that sits in teaching and learning and one that sits in the welcome center. And we all worked really hard to make sure services moved over. People could still access Power School the next day. And that team, I mean, the 3 departments, those people just did a stellar job. Liz Woolley and Debbie were just like heroes. It was truly remarkable. So that falls under all of these things. We're moving our library services. That's also going to save, like we won't have to replace servers for sure, but also having that locally when things went down here, they couldn't access that asset management as well. And both of those things, like, I mean, it allows us to just do things more efficiently and better. So we get security patches sooner. We have the consistent access is a really big deal. That disaster recovery plan, we had a couple of field techs that drafted that for us, and we're in the process of implementing each piece. It's very comprehensive and affects all these areas as well. And then we also have, oh, go ahead.
Is this IT specific, or how are you collaborating with other departments? Because if we're under disaster, there's going to be other operations that need to have.
Yeah. Yes, that is a really good question. All of these things take a tremendous amount of collaboration, right? So the disaster recovery plan is originating in IT, but we're reaching, like, facilities has a lot to do with this. And I know, I mean, Casey's been great about inviting me in for the last year to all the things, like the 911 services that are affected, and then phone services as a relation to that. In fact, and building access, those kinds of, like, those security concerns, those are also facilities. And then maintenance falls under his department as well. So we're all kind of, we're originating it, but we're reaching out to each of those people. The security part of it is like, we're working with the business office to make sure. Last question was, someone tried to have my paycheck diverted, and it was my signature on there and everything. It triggered this, like, okay, how do we actually have people prove when they say payroll, hey, I want you to switch, and now I want you to send this check to this account. So it's good. Like, we're kind of asking those questions all the time, and then we'll kind of mold that plan to make it make sense for Woodburn. So it's massive. It involves every department. I mean, even on the teaching and learning side, the education piece is really, it's going to lie with them, and we have to have training time and things like that. So yeah, we're working on it, but it's so comprehensive. It's probably going to take a couple of years, and then it's going to shift and change based on whatever the threats are, or what Homeland Security. So we're going to definitely have it. It's going to be a plan, but it's going to be nimble. So
the amount that you had up there, is that the amount that was saved this year, or is that the amount that's going to be saved for next year?
This is this year, and it's ongoing. So there are costs that we would have incurred up and coming that we're going to it was just the one, there was one cost that was just once.
So the 500, is it the 500?
Mhm.
That is what's gonna be saved every year.
Well, it's gonna end up being like 400,015.
Right, like, so whatever
Four
that amount
hundred
is,
fifteen
that's how
thousand.
much is the saving.
Yes.
And where does that money go from?
It's funny, we don't budget for that line anymore.
Right, so where does it go? So we would have that now. Where does it now go?
It'll go to various places, I would think.
So where is that going next year?
This,
We budgeted that.
So we just.
Yeah.
Did we not? Okay.
sorry.
So we haven't been able to have really a replacement cycle, refreshment schedule, but in the budget. So with these cost savings.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so the things under access you see here, won't read them all because you've probably seen them elsewhere. Oh yeah, Jamie mentioned this one, battery backups are going to be a big deal. We've got 30 minutes. We're shooting for 45 minutes, which will get us out of some sticky situations. We lose power a lot in Woodburn. I've noticed. Did anybody work for the power company? And then there were some access problems, like DNS was something that was an issue, and it really, like, Jamie worked hard to solve it. I think it's mostly solved. It was a huge issue here. Okay. Some more DNS there. So as far as reliability goes, this is a lot of servers and switches that are getting replaced. We talked about VPN. It's sort of the tunnel into the district, and we've got multi-factor authentication on that. Not a lot of people are using our virtual private network, but it is necessary. Like you mentioned, camera footage. If you need that on a weekend and you're not able to come in, there has to be a way for you to get to it. Just because that stuff is so time sensitive. As far as efficiency goes, this is where the number of servers that Jamie was talking about at the very beginning. So 17 old servers replaced with 8. Some of that is because we put services in the hosted, as hosted with companies. I don't know where, somewhere there is a, we're doubling the speed of the internet over the next year. So with the fiber connections that we talked about going out of the district and within the district, you can only move as fast as your slowest part. So for years, that's been the firewall. It was limiting, it was really cutting our bandwidth in half. So we've configured, I think Jamie finally got it configured. We had some issues with the new firewall. It's now configured. Once we implement that, we're going to double our speed immediately. But we've done some, he's done some magic in between that has relieved traffic in other areas, especially at high. I mean, we would love to tell people to not watch the World Cup, but or March Madness or whatever it is, but it sucks all of the bandwidth. Yeah, we'd rather just make it better. So that's what you did. So yeah, lots of improved. I think all of this kind of is either we explained it or it explains itself. Content filtering. Did you have any old, well, we won't pull up the pictures. We did some before and after pictures. You saw that mess of cables in that first closet. A lot of them are getting cleaned up. Our networking person is very, yes, he has a very good detail oriented brain and he likes that stuff to be neat. So yeah, and it really, it improves efficiency for us because it's much easier to track a problem when that looks clean. Or find a port that may or may not be hot. If that looks clean and your cables are color coded in a way. It also helps with Jamie and I, when we do E-rate funding, we need to make sure that we know what was purchased with the funds for each year. And if we color code things in closets, we can immediately, and there's an audit, we can immediately pull out that hardware that was purchased. It's a really big deal for record keeping. Looking at Sarah like, we're doing it. Okay, I think the last one is security. We've gone over most of these things as well. Backups. File servers. Oh, endpoints. So endpoints are the user technology around the district, and then anywhere that our connections end. So we're securing all of those. I think the number on that was like, we were doing 30 for some reason. I don't know why it was 30 different kinds of endpoints, and now there are hundreds.
Yeah, so we had the previous tech department had purchased a commercial product that was fairly expensive and was limited to the number of endpoints we could watch. So we could have outage, and IT wasn't aware of it because we were only able to monitor 30 endpoints. Whereas now we are able to monitor every single switch, every single server at every single school using an open source software, which has zero cost to us. So now I get all kinds of alerts on my phone when, when things go down. So
That's what we don't,
yeah.
All right. So the last bit is, these are our upcoming projects in those same categories. So eventually we're going to double internet speeds, but eventually when our fiber builds all happen, it'll be about 10 times what it is now. One of the things that we didn't mention that Ken's a hero for is Cipriano across the street has had horrible internet service since, I think, since we've been leasing that building. And we have a, well, we did, we still have it, but it's not doing anything now. It was essentially a receiver on their building that was talking to, or our building was talking to their building. It just never worked. Their voice over IP phones didn't even work. And he got, so there was fiber running to that building, so we just activated that fiber. So it was, I mean, it's nice not to hear complaints anymore. Like, we don't know what's wrong. We don't know what the other options are, but now they haven't, they have stopped speaking to us.
Yeah, when I started, we had a lot of the internet's down, you know, which could be 1,000 different things. We've slowly chipped away at all the things that cause the internet's down, calls or emails. And so now we're down to like 2 or 3 items that we have problems with that make the internet go down, and they're on the docket for replacement this summer.
Yeah. So that's the thing about IT. When you don't hear about us, like nobody heard about the Power School transition, that makes us really happy. We don't really want you to know what we're doing behind the scenes. We want folks focused on kids. And when we do our jobs, they can focus on kids and content and delivery and supporting teachers. So that's like, when they don't call us, we're really happy.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't know if somebody else came up with this quote, but it's like, the best work that I do is work you'll never know I've done, right? I remember typically, so I was the technology supervisor in Woodburn, and when we would have an outage, I would send out an email, all staff email afterwards, explaining what happened, why it happened, and how I'm going to keep it from happening in the future. And I would get a lot of respond emails from staff saying, "Oh, thank you so much, yada yada." But it always struck me as funny is because when we had an outage, that was a failure on my part, right? So I failed them by having the internet go down, or the file server or whatever. And that's when they're sending me thank yous. It's all the other times when things don't work and nobody thanks me. That's when I'm doing a good job. You know, when you don't know that, you don't think about it, right? I should be in the shadows. So
We showed you all the stuff you don't see tonight. So these are the things that are coming. We're doing yet another phone switch over, but it's mostly to save money. So Mitel is very expensive to maintain. It's more reliable than it was before, but we're gonna switch again to really see some cost saving. I was appalled at some of those contracts. Core switch we mentioned, the fiber build we mentioned. Managed printers and copiers. Yeah, I think we went over all this stuff. Are there, some of them get a little acronymy. Are there any questions?
So you're also responsible for the phones, is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell me a bit about why the phones go down?
The phones go down?
Like they don't work?
There were, I mean, we had trouble with a server that got replaced, but that was in the fall. The phones are still going down?
So 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, it happened. It was, I don't remember when it was. I called my daughter's school, and then I called another school. I called the district office. I called another school. They were all down. So why does that happen? It seems like it happens too frequently over the year.
So
Why
you
does that
may,
happen?
that may actually be a symptom of something else. So when we have an internet outage, the phones also go down. So you may have called when we're having an internet outage. So we typically think of that as an internet outage, even though the phones are down and the security damage, well, actually the security damage, don't go down, but things that depend on the internet, if the internet's down. then-
Yeah, more than likely, if it was recently, it was one of those core switches that are getting replaced.
Yeah. we've had a couple outages with those courses.
Yeah,
And those-
they've got to
just
go.
waiting for the new ones to arrive.
Last day of school.
Something.
That's right. And we had to flip yep, you're right.
And so I heard one of you talk about a website. What is, who's responsible for the website?
It doesn't lie with us.
Where does that go?
It goes with the communications person.
The communications person. So we don't have one. So who's responsible for
Right,
that?
so Jenny's taking care of some of that, and we have some expertise to put post stuff up like the ordinance and the passport.
But every school has a website.
And each school has a website, so they determined who is their person to do the updates, and so people were all trained. Vibration, so each school is responsible for updating information.
Is that common for school districts?
There's a million configurations.
Because at least when I used to work here, IT was responsible for websites. So I'm just curious when that changed.
It's been that way since before I was here. I actually have not seen IT run websites in districts for a long, long time. So, but that's the way it was in my day. They were run by each individual school.
It was definitely that way, like in the early 2000s, like in Newburgh, we hosted our website internally and I was the webmaster. But over the years, web programming has gotten a lot more complicated than just HTML and CSS, JavaScript and Ajax. All these other technologies have come out and people wanted those features on websites. And unless you're kind of a full-time web person, it's hard to keep up with those technologies because they're changing so fast. And so, we're a jack of all trades, phones, we can't, and so it's hard to spend a majority of our time just being a web developer, unless that's, something the district hires out as one person that just takes care of the website. So
Do we
I
have
think a
somebody
lot of-
on your team who has experience with websites?
I do.
Well, all of us have dabbled, but
Right.
it's always belonged to communications. I was in a similar sized district and it was the same way.
But so districts, instead of having someone who was experienced with that and concentrating on that, have kind of outsourced that service. So I think Woodburn uses a company called Final Site. So they host the site, they do the hosting, they do all the programming, they do the software and security updates and to make sure the site doesn't get hacked and all that sort of thing. So they have this, they're a company with a team of people that concentrate on that stuff. And so then what the district's role in it is just putting content on the site. And so obviously IT is not really like the content creators for the district, it's typically like the communications, it's the information that we want to get out to the community that needs to be on the website. So I think that's why over the last 10 years or so, technology departments have kind of stepped back from website, historic website roles, and the communications department is at each district is kind of taken over doing the website for everyone. So.
It's one of those efficiency things right there.
They're also not locally hosted anymore because when we were developing our own, there something called a Section 508 compliance that requires that
Yes.
websites are accessible. So just about every district in the country has gone to a hosted service of some kind in order to require some federal law. So
That's
it has to do with accessibility with screen readers or other kinds of things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Our site there. So that's the servers themselves are helping the SDOM to host a service that can say demonstrate their Section 508 compliance.
So we have 6 schools. And you mentioned like a building administrator, building technician, networking technician. Are there other positions within your team? Or is this all of them?
Well, we all overlap a little bit, so.
Right, but as far as like position titles.
Uh,
So I'm just
I
curious,
didn't,
like if there's a, like, is it the networking technician who goes out to the school building? Is it the building technician who goes out to the school building?
we all go out to buildings.
So there isn't a person designated to a specific school.
No.
Okay.
No, it did used to be that way, but we haven't, we
don't
we
do
didn't
that
implement something like that.
So then how big is your team?
Well, we have 9 people and 1 open position.
So a total of 10.
Yeah, we have FTE for 10. Other questions?
I don't think I have questions, but I would like job descriptions, Joe, for the positions that we have. in the team. Is that something that you can provide?
Sure, they're all available on the website.
So then I'm just kind of thinking of students. So like when there's an issue on school and they'll see everybody, or there isn't like a specific person who goes to their.
Well, it depends on what the issue is. And also who's here.
What do you mean who's here?
Well, this summer, lots of people are taking days,
Oh,
not as many as we'd like. I mean, we do that throughout the year. So it's, they're entitled to several days. So if our networking person is out, it is our goal not to contact him when he's on vacation. So it depends on who's here and who's got the expertise to tackle the problem. We had one of our field techs pushing a button on the cursor on that last day of school, actually. Okay, here's how you do it. Yeah.
so in the past, when we've had new staff, they usually come in to present, introduce themselves. And your department was invited to attend. And so I'm just curious why the rest of your team is not here.
We were invited. Huh. Oh, you mean all of us?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Like I didn't meet you, but I think I knew who you were last meeting or the meeting before. So I'm just curious why your other team members are not here today.
Well, they weren't asked to come. I mean, they weren't required to come, and we're here representing everyone. She's curious why the whole team isn't here.
Oh, here tonight?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, they've been working their butts off.
They worked got the summer school computers ready over at Heritage and Valor, and Ken's wife had appointments, and they have lives outside of.
Well, we all do.
Yeah. So after their long day of prepping Chromebooks, they went home. And if anybody ever wants to shadow a field tech, that was something they all offered, is if you wanted to just find out what they do for the day, or you want to shadow the networking person or a systems administrator or me, to find out what we do every day, that would be stellar. So you can come to us.
No, I went to your office sometime.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I mean out in buildings, like
Yeah.
as we do our jobs during the day, you're welcome to join us. Other questions?
I'm gonna go back to where we were there. and we
Yeah,
were
let's
talking
talk about
about COPA, and then we came back over here to talk about the students, the teachers, the parents, and how do we train, the entire community that it's a user, right? And so you were making a comment about translating the documents and so on and so forth. And so 2 questions, a common question. In your staff, you have a BIPOC community, people that can speak both 3 languages, or, a couple of people that can speak the language, because when you're having the parents to sign the COPA, that's a good timing, right? To train our parents about what's going on in cyber attacks and so on and so forth, how to use the Chromebook and so on. So it was just a suggestion. And a question in terms of people of color in your team and people that can be bilingual by culture to our, to the conversation.
For the bilingual one speaks Spanish, one speaks. And then, wait a minute, my note's more than that. No, there are four Spanish speakers and English speakers. Yeah, because Ken isn't bilingual. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, we'd have to contract out for a Russian speaker or seek one in a building, but yeah. Maybe there's Sri Lankan population that we don't know about. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Just, and that extra education piece, like what in the heck is in this policy and why do you have it? It's good. All right, anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the walking around versus PowerPoint actually. Stretch.
Told you as a classroom teacher. Never took this.
All right, next we have confirmation items. Take a few minutes to review those.
I do have a question, Joe, under hiring for computer technician. What is the classification?
I'm sorry,
What is the classification for the computer technician? position?
classified.
It's a classified position?
Make a motion that we accept all of the confirmation items as listed.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Items have been confirmed. Next, we have board action items. We'll start with old business. And the first item today is board retreat update.
So the date that the board tentatively scheduled, OSB is not available. I sent a meeting via email of when they would be available, which are 21st or the 22nd of August, or the 31st of August.
I would be available the 31st.
What days are available?
21st, 22nd, or 31st. And then you two wanna join?
I have to look at my schedule to get.
Uh,
21st, 22nd, and 31st. I'm available.
Oh, okay.
So those 3 days, right?
It'd
Yeah,
be
it'll
one
be
of
one of
those
them.
three.
Yeah, yeah. Did you hear back from Anthony?
Anthony said all of those would work. for him.
Oh,
I have meetings on the 21st and the 22nd, which is Monday, and I have mandatory meetings, and then I have mandatory meeting on Tuesday. But I can be right after. The 31st? The 21st, I can meet late. I mean, what time are we? We were planning to do all day, right? Like from 10 to 4, something like that. Up to the board, whatever would work for you. But we said, right, we were settling for a 9 to 6 or something like that. From 9 to 6. If we can start at 10, would it be my mandatory meeting on Monday? The one on the 23rd, it's at 3 p.m. So the 22nd, it's at 3 p.m. So that's not even hard. So the 21st, if we start at 10, it works great. And if we do 31st, anytime. Anytime.
You can do anytime too on the 31st.
Yeah. 31st would probably work for me too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's set on 31st. So we can do like 9:30 or 10 or 8 o'clock. So school's already in session by that time, so let's do 9:30. And then, I'm sorry, I need to clarify our July board meeting. Because I think we went a lot of back and forth and I was confused about the 11th or the 6th. On here, I wrote down that you're meeting on the 11th, but when I went back to my notes, it's actually the 6th.
keep going.
So I just want to confirm that everyone's available on the 6th.
I have a business trip that I'm already scheduled to work on the 6th. Yes,
Would you be able to zoom in?
that evening.
Because the July board meeting, I mean, we're literally gonna meet maybe like not even 45 minutes. It'll be quick. We just have the.
I will probably have, I'm going to a conference, so I probably will see if I can stay here that night, since it won't be a long meeting.
So we're thinking Wednesday, September 6th.
July 6th.
July 6th.
Um,
For the org meeting.
I think it's a Thursday.
Yeah, it's a July. I went from,
That's Friday.
that is the swearing in.
You probably want to be in person.
And that July meeting, it doesn't need to be beginning, it just needs to happen before July 31st. So if there's another date that would work.
So the July 11th, were we gonna have OSBA come in that day too? or is
Yeah, I was
that-
thinking, so because the other date didn't work, but he can just cover everything in August for the board retreat.
Oh, okay, that's connected to that.
But the July org meeting.
that is where we are starting.
Could be 11th didn't work.
Didn't work for
Oh,
OSBA, but it could work for
Oh,
us.
The
I think it's
11th,
somebody's birthday.
Both of them.
onto the board. He'll be sworn in. He can be.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. But we could move it to the 11th if you're
Right.
What
here.
about the 11th? Is that what? Oh, you are.
Yeah. we can do that.
But didn't somebody have?
That one was out of town.
It's Juan's birthday, but he said it was fine.
He was,
Oh,
okay. Yeah, we were debating what, who was going to the cake that day.
Yeah.
I know
Rosie
it's
or
birthday
Juan.
is in July. 5:45?
Does 11th work?
At what time?
5:45? 11th?
So move it to 6 then?
Yeah, we're moving the 6th. Okay. I'll send an email tomorrow to confirm with everybody.
The 11th and the 31st.
Your 11 organizational meeting.
Alright, next up today we have a second reading on policy updates.
Yeah, we had, all of these were from before we was originally on the agenda for April. We pulled them off and we held them on to this. So these are the final versions of them. The only thing of note, of course, is the JGE, which is the expulsion we're deleting and then replacing with the other ones. There were so many changes, as you recall from last time. Also, as a reminder, the board approves policy, but not AR. So the ARs are in there for your review. Put it in there, but your motion is to approve the policies. We've cleaned up all the pieces in there. We're changes noted, and so they're here for your consideration.
Can you talk about the recommendation to do the expulsion?
Yeah, so if you look directly after it, on page 25, I think it is. 25, that's the new one. So there were so many changes. So the original one is on pages 21 through 23. And so when we got this from OSBA, they said just replace the JGE with our current one because of all of the changes have been harder to reconcile. So it's just easier to have a clean copy of it.
So when you say, sorry, when you say page 25, is that?
Of the packet.
Of the packet?
It's hard to see because it's
Yeah,
overlaps with
yeah.
the.
Yeah, if you look at just find the one that says delete in diagonal,
Mhm.
and then it's just the pages directly after that. Yeah, the numbers cross over with the other numbers and say,
Where is it? You've gone too far.
so right through the confirmation items. Right after the, there you go, right. And so the one prior to with the large words of delete on it,
Mhm.
that's the original one, and the replacement is this one. One, two, almost 3 pages, and this one is 1, 2 pages. 4 legal records. So they've made some cleanups, and they said it's just easier to go with this one rather than try to go through and do all of the linguistic changes and get it done.
So how is this impact our current expulsion policy? What's different? Is there anything specific that sticks out?
So on the summary, what it explained was that there was confusion on what the board's role was as far as what their role is in expulsion. And so the new policy really clarifies that. We have so the board delegates and has an expulsion hearings officer. And in our district, it's always been the superintendent. And then the board's role is the family or the student always has the option to appeal. And then that's where the board's role falls in, is on the appeal. So although the superintendent's decision or the hearings officer is final, there's always the option to appeal to the board. And so then this policy just clarifies it.
So that's the only difference.
Mhm.
And that was always in effect, it just wasn't.
It's very wordy before versus
Yeah.
now it's very.
Mhm.
clean.
And it's, so anytime we have an expulsion hearing, that is the last, we have to notice that in their letter, is that they do have the option to appeal. And since I've been in this role, I don't think we've never had an appeal.
It's just a test. So it's not
Yeah.
common.
No.
We'll go to the page before, the cybersecurity. I'm assuming that over here at the end of the policy says legal references. Is that where we can find like consequences of cybersecurity if the kids or the teacher or anyone utilizing the internet and having access to all this? Is that, are these all the policies and law references that any consequences?
No, these are the references are to what we're required to have in terms of cybersecurity. So the consequences as they may be are something to be locally developed, and that's why Corinne earlier tonight was talking about that document
The
that
document,
explains those
yeah.
things, yeah.
So I would suggest the OSBA, you were gonna say.
I was gonna say, there is, so if you look under the ARs, there's the hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, cyberbullying, or teen dating violence reporting procedures. So that is the those are the administrative rules that we follow if there is ever cyberbullying or any of those things. So if a student reports that they're being cyberbullied, then that's the procedure that our administrators follow. So we do have a policy for that.
Yeah,
It's just, it's in a different
But it's
one.
under.
I was assuming that there was something, because doesn't talk about consequences here. So, yeah, so for me, it would be nice if we could insert, see administrative policies or something, you know, that if we could, nothing biggie, but just so we don't assume that. we're on time. All right, I read up.
Motion?
I can move the motion to approve. Approve or adopt, I was like, what? Policy updated, second reading. The recommendations to adopt, you want me to read all of them?
That's presented.
I was, see what's presented.
In a second. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. The policies have been adopted. Okay, we have some new business items. The first one is resolution number 23-004.
We'll invite Sarah to the table.
everyone. Yeah, in front of you, the approved budget for the 23-24 school year and fiscal year. This is identical to what was presented at the budget committee meeting. Essentially, all we do is move everything from proposed to approved, because that was the motion that the budget committee took. So that's what you're seeing in front of you. The resolution in your packet is essentially a roll up of all of the detailed pages of the budget into one neat and tidy little resolution where we derive our spending authority from. I have not prepared an additional presentation as there wasn't anything requested, but if you have any questions about the resolution or anything new, I'd be happy to help.
I do have a question. I don't know if things were moved. I was looking at the old budget.
The last year's or?
No. This last one, that I guess the one before this one.
Okay.
And I was looking at page 23,
Sure.
and it's not here, or it's moved forward. So were things added?
Oh, sometimes the
or-
page breaks get updated because of how it fits on the space, but everything should be there. Everything in the document is still there.
Okay.
How it printed, there was kind of a weird print, but I'd already hit print on it and didn't want to reprint all 50 pages because I'm probably the cheapest person in the school district.
Mhm.
So it might be a little misleading how it's laid out, but everything should still be identical to how it was.
How confident do you feel about this budget?
How confident do you feel about which pieces?
All of it.
All of it. Sorry, my apologies. I feel pretty confident in the budget. I think our funding numbers from the state are really good. Our enrollment numbers are tracking where they should be. We have 2 settled contracts, so I feel good with those numbers. I know we're gonna have to be really prudent coming into the future years and monitoring enrollment and how revenue comes in. But I think we're set up really nicely for the coming year.
So it sounds like for this coming year, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then the years after, not so sure.
I don't know if I'm not so sure, but again, the changing superintendents always makes me a little cautious, I'll be honest with you, because their methodology and what their vision of the district might be totally different than what we've been prepared for the budget. So just having to rework those resources and make sure we're meeting the needs of the student and current staffing. There's always that piece, but no, I'm confident in our budget. I'm probably a super conservative budgeter because I don't want our district to be in a position that we have to make huge changes mid-year that disrupt staff and student lives. I would honestly be devastated if we were in that position. So I feel really comfortable with the numbers that are in there, yeah. And if that ever wasn't the case, I would hope to be able to be in front of all of you, walking through that with you as it's happening. So that would be my expectation. Great discussion last time. We have the budget presented.
So just, I guess, Joe, I just want to confirm, like, as we approve this and going into next, we shouldn't expect any surprises of any kind when it comes to the budget, Joe?
Dearly hope.
We're making an approval.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution number 23-004.
seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
23-004. Sarah?
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have the Arthur Academy Charter School Agreement.
Okay, each in the middle of the year of the finalization of the contract, when it does expire, the charter school does come forward and ask to be renewed. We had gone back and forth on a few of those things. We did not have it for the April board meetings. We had other things on that, so we left out. We brought it back now. There are no material changes to this. We stayed with the 5-year. They had asked for a 10-year. We decided to stay with the 5. They had also asked to increase their funds 90%, and we kept it at the 80. As we're able to do, as we continue that, we do provide some services for them. We felt that was still fair, and they were fine with that. And so this extends their agreement from this year forward, and then come back into 2027. Correct? I'm going to come back and do it again. Then it's a long, wordy document for that one. Yeah, and so this is to renew their charter and continue forward. We do some of the finance things. We do special education as a required. So in special ed, if students reside in your district, you're still responsible for them. And so we provide those services to them as well. Data system things, right? So power school, what have you. All the overhead that goes along with those.
This Mastery Learning Institute, that's
their company, that's their parent company.
so they operate multiple charter schools.
They do, yeah, throughout the region.
Is there a second? Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed. Next item on today's agenda is a recommendation to adopt the Woodburn School District Integrated Plan.
Thank you. So this is the first year that the district is doing this.
It is. It's the first year actually that the Department of Education has had us do it this way. And so it came from, so first of all, I apologize for the template. They wanted us to use a fairly standardized template. So we're using the Department of Education's template. And so just for what tonight, want to share what we've prioritized. These are things that you've already worked on through your SIA, through your high school success, and through other funding streams. And you'll see those in a moment. And then eventually we do need board approval. And I'll talk about what the HEP process is after this when it comes into next year. So the background that they presented us with is that there were requests by educational leaders and state legislators to do it all in one package instead of doing individual grants. I'm not sure that it was any less work or any more integrated in that way, but at least for this first year, we've been trying to reuse some of the processes that we had for community engagement. We've talked about some of those in the past. We've heard some feedback about how to do those better in the future. These are the 6 programs, not the only 6 programs, but some of the programs that we use in order to move forward. So these 6 programs are the High School Success Act that came from before, Student Investment Account, the Continuing Improvement Planning, which we've been doing for many, many years, the Career and Technical Education. And remember, Career and Technical Education and the Student Investment Account and High School Success are relatively new programs. Everyday Matters, which is about attendance and attendance movements, and then Early Indicator and Intervention Systems. And we'll talk a little bit about those, but those are the ways that we're trying to track kids who are not on track. Your 9th grade on track, some of those attendance, behavior, and coursework or academics. So we pay for a system to monitor that as well. Okay, so I think you know most of these, the high school success. It's all about improving graduation rates, college and career, the continuous improvement, and I think I actually talked about most of those. So each one of those programs are part of this integrated plan. So there are some requirements of us to actually do the procedure. We have to use an equity lens, which we'll talk about which one we used. There has to be community engagement, tribal consultation if that's applicable, a comprehensive needs assessment. We have to look at QEM, which I always find a little bit fascinating because the QEM model, of course, if we were to do that, that requires a level of funding that's a full $1 billion above where we are funded today. Review and use the regional CTE consortia inputs. Remember, we are part of the consortia for the WCA, the Willamette Career Academy in Salem, as part of that consortia. We have to look at impact on our focal students tied to planning decisions, and we have to develop a 4-year plan with outcomes, strategies, and activities. Longitudinal goals will be then developed, co-developed with the Department of Education and the district over the next year. And I'll show you some of those indicators near the end of that presentation. So we used, and I apologize for the formatting, we've not gone and done all the pretty formatting yet. This is the adopted strategic plan from last time. We used this as our equity lens because the development of this was done from that perspective with our community and students, parents, staff, and school leaders. So we used this as our kind of lens to figure out what things we wanted to do in the future to improve our outcomes. We engaged folks across the district in different ways. It wasn't just a single survey. We've had multiple ways we've done this. We could talk a little bit about the student school-based health center was one. Our youth truth survey, which we've done for the last couple of years and we'll continue to do in the future. We've done some work with specifically with our staff, and vets and folks at our Welcome Center. This is community, regional STEM, community leaders. So we've engaged a lot of folks to come up with what ways we should do this. Some of the other parts we pulled together from the information that we have are, of course, our student assessments, sometimes called OSAS, but also SBAC. Our MAP data, which is something that we've been using fairly heavily this year. Looking at our attendance data, our ELPA information, the Oregon Student Health or the Health Teen Survey, that used to be called, our behavior data, our student mental health data, self-reported, some DESA. Information from the county, any of the groups that we did, parent focus groups, strategic plan, that community work. We also did, again, the dual language survey information that we do with all families who come in, and our youth truth parent responses along with our student responses. And so coming together after we distilled through all that information and the people with whom we spoke, we came down to some things I think that are probably fairly obvious when you put them all into groups like this. So mental health and safety was one of our main things that came up. Tiered systems of support, and those tiered systems are for those. If you think about a classroom full of kids and you've got 20 kids in that room, every kid's sort of at a different level, and if you can kind of group them, some kids will need more support. Between 20 and 25% will need far more support than other kids, and then a smaller group below those, and then the majority of kids are in a larger group. So you tier systems, and you've heard the MTSS conversation before, and that kind of continues it here. Climate, culture, and attendance. We've continued to talk about attendance. This is not just a Woodburn issue. This is state and actually national about kids coming to school. It's something that we're still continuing to work on. Climate and culture as well, of course. Climate in buildings. What's happening when it comes to behavior, things like that. Parent and caregiver engagement. That's something that has come up at the board level a lot, as well as from some of our information we've gotten out of Youth Truth and some of our focus groups. And then access to additional academic opportunities. So the plan is sort of broken up into two pieces. So the first one's in this intended outcomes. This kind of gives you the overview, and then I'm going to break it into things that we're going to do for all students. And then I have it by elementary, middle, and high, and kind of see how those pathways go forward. So mental health and safety, better access and additional supports for student mental health, behavioral health. I think we've heard this a lot, and you've seen it on the news. The tiered systems of support, which I just recently, or just briefly mentioned to you before, using all of the data and the information. There are things like 20% meetings with students who are at the highest level of need in that 20%. We work on those groups and focus on them. You'll see that we're going to do some of that as well per grade level. Our also intended outcome in the climate and culture area is that students and staff will experience safety and belonging in their academic, social, and emotional learning environments, and they'll feel a safe sense of belonging, relevance, and belief in themselves and their academic community, as shown by increased attendance. We know that if students are engaged and if they're excited to be in school, then they will come to school. So what are the ways that the district in the future will figure out ways to engage students and their families in order to show the value and the importance of being at the school? A culture of engagement centered in equity around our parent and caregivers and more meaningful opportunities. I know this is some feedback that we've gotten from the board about how we should be doing a better job connecting with parents and families for their participation. And then finally, the wider opportunities for students experience. So Corinne actually earlier tonight spoke about some of the technical things that are happening at one middle school. We want to make sure they're happening at both and actually across the spectrum, so kids have more access to those, as well as enhanced access to our dual language programs and the kinds of opportunities that we provide in our target languages. So I just spoke about them. These are your outcomes, and your strategies to reach them are relatively similar, and we'll talk about what the activities are. But so those are for all students K-12. We obviously want to do mental health and safety, the tiered system support, climate and culture attendance, parent caregiver, and access to the academic opportunities. At elementary school, however, we're going to start, and you're going to see kind of three flows or three pathways in each one of these. They'll sort of connect to each other. We know that we have to, and I think you'll see from some of the earlier data slides that we have decided to focus very targeted at our K-1 reading and early literacy programs. It doesn't mean that we're not teaching reading in all of the grade levels. I want to be clear about that. But there is going to be very specific and targeted focus on our K-1 to get early readings. We all know that the data that shows us that kids are not reading at grade level by at the end of grade 3, that they're more likely to drop out in the future by significant numbers. And so we do have a very primary focus on figuring out better ways and more of our professional development focus to K1. Biliteracy and numeracy, okay, this is for obviously all of our elementary folks, our kids at those grade levels, continue to develop those, also building expertise. We have, there'll be some opportunities around professional development for next year. We talked about moving to, have moved to all day Mondays for professional development. Those schedules are nearing finalization, and we also have a 2-day conference. And so a lot of professional development working around these things. We'll have both internal and external experts working with our elementary school staff to develop their instructional prowess in both of these. And then finally, some introduction of, or more introduction of STEAM. This is uneven across the district. And so one of the areas that came up is that more access to interesting and engaging things for all students when it comes to science, technology, engineering, art, and math. We are fortunate to have art teachers at elementary school, and STEAM is really an integrated approach to looking at all of those, not just doing all 4 or 5 of those, but it's actually a way to look at putting them together and doing projects, right? And so that's something that would be an additional piece, moving maybe away from a traditional science into a more integrated approach to science. And this is something that's been around a long time, so we're not inventing it, but it's something that kids are focused on. Middle school, we have spoken before a little bit about enhancing our access, looking to hire, and this is actually more about hiring enough people to be able to provide additional access to dual language courses in both Spanish and in Russian. There's a lot of work to do around this, just in terms of staffing along the way. This will be a long-term goal for Woodburn, is to be able to have the staffing available to provide additional language classes. So one of the changes that came up that we're trying to work through this year from the Department of Education was that we can essentially count Spanish language as the same as taking English language, and they can flip-flop. And so there's some opportunities there for students to have some additional space within their schedule, which then takes me to the next one, which is the STEAM and the electives. One of the things that we talked about during the development of this was trying to provide some joy during the day for something else besides what they're doing in their academics, because students who are taking Spanish language arts were also taking English language arts. Not everybody wants to have, you know, a double of that. They do it in social studies. Are there ways for us to provide more space within their schedule to take additional kinds of classes? Again, part of that is around staffing, and part of that is a shift doing some of these other things like STEAM, which you saw in the elementary school, as well as other things that may come up. Additionally, we are required to, and yet have not started to do too many things with starting our college and career readiness plans and profiles. Normally we start those in the high school, but beginning those at an earlier age to start the exploration of those things. We do have a career class we had at French Prairie. And I think when they're trying to get ready to develop the plans and profiles, it's not about locking somebody into, you're going to be this when you grow up, but it's what are your interests and how do those things align? There's always a scramble every year of a student or 2 or 3 or 4 who have not taken the right classes to get into the right thing when they want to go off to something else. And so we want to make sure that students are thinking about those things and they're working together with their counselors to put together a good plan. And some of that starts at that level. That also includes the college of career readiness, also includes the work we've been doing with AVID. We actually have several teachers at an AVID conference today. That's actually where Juan as well. He's there with our teachers and Director Chapman, and they're going through and getting additional training in AVID that will really help bolster our CCR at middle school and high school. At high school, then, to increase our CTE participation, you know, we have done some things at WCA. There are still some spots available that we could be using. Additionally, there has been some work about some development around CTE programs locally. Some of those, again, are either about staffing or about resources. They're trying to figure out, where does it fit in the schedule? When they go through and do a process for forecasting for kids' schedules, kids will sign up for them or not sign up for them. So some of this is about getting these programs off the ground. I know we had a few folks who had proposed programs that kids just didn't sign up for with enough numbers, and so they weren't able to offer them. But to continue to work on that kind of piece for our kids to have more opportunities to do career and technical education. I additionally expanding the dual language options. Again, that comes with around how do we staff, what are the kind of classes we provide, what classes are available now. And then the CCR and the 9th grade on track. That's one of the things that I know during the high school 2.0 conversations that this district had prior to this school year. One of the challenges they knew would come was how to go from 4 smalls to one big comprehensive. And I think they're still trying to figure out how to do that. Being 9th grade on track means how well students are doing in 9th grade, how many, if they're failing 2 classes or more, then they're considered at risk. And so the connection between middle school and high school is exceptionally important because we know who some of our students are who are already struggling before they get to 9th grade. Additionally, this is where the plans come in, the plan and profile I talked about before, to solidify their plan and profile, and additional AVID resources for AVID training and AVID work at the high school. So we're required to check on our progress of this. Of course, we would do yearly reviews of the graduation data, 9th grade on track, the youth truth. I think the district will continue to use the healthy teen survey, which you already do, all of our achievement data that we get from our state assessments, how many students are in the programs, which ones are important, which ones are popular, which ones are not. What do we look at for our parent participation rates in site council surveys, conferences, school events? I think you all remember we had the math night at Washington as an example, was a huge success. So how do we parlay those into more? And then 3 times a year, looking at everything from the benchmark assessment data. So this the map data, that is the things, those are the ones that go along the year. So they're more of a temperature check along the year. Attendance, behaviors, and grades. Sometimes called the ABCs because they call them courses instead of grades, but it's the same thing. And then DESA and SWIS, DESA being our self-report student mental health data, and then SWIS, which is our behavior information. So that goes into comes out of our data system when there are behavior things and goes into SWIS, and so we track some of those. All right. Again, I apologize for the slide. This is how the state understands success, which essentially they want to see all of these things put together, and then we see how they're tracking. I think the most important part of this actually is the one down in the lower left-hand corner, and I'm going to show you the ones from Woodburn that we have. They're going to show you the historic data, then they'll show you what it looks like for us to close gaps, what it looks like for just baseline if everybody goes the same way, and then we have stretch targets. Okay. At the end, after you've adopted this and you move into the next phase of this planning with the Department of Education and the district and the board, you'll be developing the longitudinal performance growth targets. That's the LPGTs. That's the top thing up there. You'll see those in a little while. Okay, so this data goes through, of course, 21, 22. That's our last full year information, so we don't have the ones for this room yet. But you can kind of see the historical data. And this one actually has it broken out by our Hispanic Latinx. And I've just chosen a few of these that came out of our planning phase. And you can see, of course, that because we have a high Hispanic percentage, that those numbers track pretty closely. In order for us to make some significant growth in the stretch chart, those are purple, it's kind of hidden by the Zoom window there. You can see that it would take fairly significant growth for us to reach those things. So the ninth grade on track to close the gap in those things by 27, 28 would have to be 89%. So we're currently at 64%. Okay. Any questions on the ninth grade on track data?
That just means that 84% of the students have to be not failing two or more classes.
Right. And you have two, so your baseline is the 64. If it just goes straight across, they're trying to visually show you the purple line. You know, if you were to make increases, and those are the initial amounts of growth we talked about making. So when we sat as a group, we said let's do 5% a year and try to increase, because that of course is a pretty large number of students.
So what happened? What did we do in 2016, 17 to 2017, 2018?
Yeah, I actually don't know what the difference was, but you know, it's a great question. I don't know what happened there.
That kind of performance that we get. Because that's even steeper slope than what the
Right.
proportion.
And we've had a steady decline since 17, 18, all the way down through last year. So you'll get your next results sometime in the fall, and you'll kind of see what those are. And that's what they'll help develop your longitudinal performance goal targets.
That'd be for this year, right?
Yeah.
The one that we're waiting on.
Right. And then you can see the attendance change, of course, although, you know, 2019, 20. So really, if you look at 2016, 17 through 2018, 19, those would be historic attendance rates. And then, you know, part of 19, 20, of course, we were in the pandemic. And then since then, even after we come back, our attendance rates are at 50%, so really low. Here, we still tried to go with a 5% gap closing target. When you get your new number, then you will sit down and actually figure out what you want growth numbers to be. The board will be part of that conversation. Okay, our four-year graduation rate. Again, it looks like it took a little bit of a change through the 1920. Obviously, we've got some pandemic thing, but we have settled out at 21, 22. We're back in school, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where we end up at that. This is both the four-year graduation rate and the five-year completion. So for students who don't quite finish in 4 years, if they finish up, take a summer class, or, you know, those are all the five-year completion rates. So if they stay with us for another year and finish off their classes, that's why the number is not hugely different. But we set a target of hitting 93% in the 27-28 school year. And so, you know, marching forward on that one, we did 3% increments in the five-year completion rate and 4% in our four-year graduation. Okay. So the plan we gave to you an extra week to look at. You've got the information that are in there. What we will do if the board would choose to approve the plan, that would go forward then to the Department of Education. They will review the submitted plan, and then they have a panel that reviews the review of the plan. And then the OD would approve it, and then they work with the district to co-develop the growth targets. Would come out of some of this baseline data, and then the board actually does hold final approval for the performance growth targets. So if you don't think they're enough or think they're too much, that's going to be part of your conversation in the fall after they develop that with the district. And so this will be an important part of setting the long-term growth and long-term goals of the district moving forward. But you will reserve the final approval for that. And they have one transition. Okay. I already talked about looking at some of these. We're going to use the metrics there: ninth grade on track, regular attendance, our graduation rates, and five-year completer rates. Our third grade reading proficiency. It is important to note that the vast majority of our students are in dual language, and so we have to work with the Department of Education around what our ELA scores look like, because they will be different. They do grow after that. So that's going to be something that's just part of the conversation when you have that with the Department of Education in the district, and the district knows that, but sometimes people at ODE don't always understand that the vast majority of our students are learning primarily Spanish, and then eventually that will overtake, but third grade is going to look a little different.
There's a deadline for this.
Yeah, we need to have this in by the June 30 deadline, so we
With the budget?
say again.
With the budget? Or is it
Yes.
separate?
Mhm. And this is the budget's all in our special revenue things from our budget book.
So once this group gets submitted, can it be changed?
Yes. But they're gonna come here and work with the district to do the longitudinal growth targets, and it may be that those things aren't the right way to do it, but they can change them. We're able to change even before, like high school success, SIA, the other programs that are in there, the early warning, things like that, those can all be adjusted along the way. So if it's something that in the fall you said, this is actually not going to work for us, then you can certainly make those changes. It's pretty flexible.
Any other questions or comments?
Was one involved in all these?
Yeah.
processes?
Yeah, this was Juan, and of course our district directors and our school people. Yeah, so we had lots of folks. And it's certainly, as Noemi asked, is something that could be changed if you decide not to, but we've been working on this for several months, and so it's not me putting together a plan. We have people at conferences and other ones, and Sarah was driving back over to be with her family, so.
That was just, one of my concerns would be like if there was like brainstorming with you only.
No,
and One being the vice superintendent and not having any input, how much we were gonna change.
Yeah.
After June 30th,
No.
right?
Yeah. A lot of these things were things that were already underway, or were in your SIA plan, or were in your high school success plan. We were the high school thing, we of course had dual say, and to make sure that we weren't, we didn't move a lot of things around. So part of this is just a new process, which is, here's the integrated plan, even though we've already passed and presented the budget. So, but yes, Juan was deeply involved in this.
Which ones, you were talking about the careers and the careers that were not fully successful
Mhm.
because of the backup students coming to those. Do you know which careers were those?
I won't give you, I'll give you one specific that I do know of. So there was an interest in doing a music technology thing. So learning how to do podcasts and recording and things of that nature. And that one just didn't quite have enough students. We had a teacher at the middle school who had prepared and done a thing and went to the evening that we had for all families to come and learn about different programs at the high school. And just didn't quite get enough students.
How much ahead of time are these options promoted? Or when is like the deadline for sign up?
So they do, so the sign up for the programs in general, they do that prior to forecasting. So we had a huge family night, took up the cafeteria in the small gym, and parents and families are invited to come and see before they do any choosing of the classes. So obviously some classes are going to be chosen for them, but it's mostly to learn about all the rest of the kinds of things that are there. We did that this year, and it happens in the springtime. They're hoping to do it earlier. Now that Woodburn has an adopted calendar for the following year, they already know what the scheduling timeline is, so they want to do it earlier. So yeah, all that's done prior to the forecasting part. So they have time to sell the program or to get interested. They also have been working on the pathways, and so that will help with the plans and profiles. They see these are the kind of careers you're interested in. Here's some of the things you need to be taking, or this math, or I know it's okay to only take 2 years, 3 years of math, and maybe you should continue on and take another one. So part of that's about working with the counselors to help that. Mhm.
Any other questions or? I'll make a motion to recommend adopting the WSC integrated plan.
So moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion has passed. Future agenda items is,
Summer.
and board calendar, this says July 11th, that's changed. There's that, no, that's the same one, okay.
That's the right one.
Yes, the regular meeting.
Okay.
It worked.
Our suggestion.
Thank you all. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, Joe.